We are here to start another parallel session, this time on rivers and water systems. In a conclave discussing the importance of water, certainly this is one aspect that could not be left out, rivers and water systems. To moderate this session, we have Shri Vivek Singh Grewal, Senior Hydrologist, Well Labs, Bengaluru. Mr. Vivek Grewal is a Senior Manager at Well Labs, a research organization in Bengaluru. He is a groundwater hydrologist with 10 years of experience in the water sector. He has worked on grassroots watershed development in rural Jharkhand for 3 years as Prime Minister's Rural Development Fellow. And before joining Well Labs, Vivek was part of groundwater consulting organizations in India and the US, where he was working as a Fulbright scholar. Okay, that's the only part we have in common. So, it's my pleasure to invite you and ask you to moderate this session. Please take over and invite the other speakers on stage.
Thank you, Rahul. I didn't know that. Okay, so thank you everyone for being here. We'll continue the great discussions we've been having since yesterday and now focus on rivers and water systems. So to set the context, before I invite all the other speakers, to set the context of the session, I just have like 2 or 3 slides to kind of visually bring everybody to the same page for the kind of discussions that would be pertinent. So, next slide please. So I just wanted to get everybody on the same page in terms of what we kind of mean when we say rivers and water systems. And I'm glad that the organizers have phrased it as rivers and water systems because I think rivers kind of personify the connectedness of the water systems. This is like the famous USGS water cycle stuff that we've been seeing for a long time. But just to emphasize the complicatedness of the system, moving from the precipitation, the snowpacks, and through all the different demands and the supplies of water with the ecosystem that goes back to the sea. So just to understand and contextualize the complicatedness of this, and also to contextualize how rivers literally are the connectedness of the systems. Wherever you see, they connect the mountains to the seas and across all the other elements, like for example, everybody knows groundwater supplies into the rivers, rivers are recharge the groundwater, so kind of embodies that interconnection, which I invite all the speakers to focus on during their talks. Next slide please. And next slide please. So the next slide will kind of focus on the problems that we have in terms of rivers and water systems currently in India. So it kind of, there's these 2 recent great studies, I would say. The left one is from Abhijit Mukherjee's paper in the Nature from 2017, focusing on Ganga's depleting base flows. And I think these 2 pictures really contextualize the problem in the rivers and water systems for the country in terms of both groundwater and surface water. What the left one says is that you can see water levels in the Ganga and in the nearby groundwater from 1970 to 2016. As the groundwater in the Ganga basin is decreasing, the base flow, which forms the fundamental the lean season flows of the Ganga, they are also reducing, and they have quantified this over 40 years or so. And if you see, the observed water levels have reduced by this much, and similarly the base flows have also reduced. They estimate that the base flow in the Ganga is approximately 20% of its total flow. And most of us know when I say base flow, it is the groundwater coming into the river and literally doing an argya into the river Ganga. That has reduced by 59% when compared to 1970s. So when we talk of river systems, let's talk of these things. Why are the river flows decreasing? And the figure on the right talks about the context in all of the other river basins. Essentially, it shows the change in stream flow. This is Dr. Vimal Mishra's recent paper. And all the areas which are in red have reduced in stream flow, and from kind of an approximate range of 30 to 40 years similarly. And you can see that the most dramatic declines are in the Ganga again, mostly in the upper Ganga, and some declines in Godavari, which is particularly the Bhima basin, and in the Tungabhadra, in the Krishna basin, in the main Krishna like stream. There are other streams which are kind of increasing, and often they are kind of, because of the dams, they conserve the inter-annual flow, and which kind of adds to it sometimes. But overall, it's a grim picture where a lot of large rivers are seeing decrease in stream flow of up to 20 or 30%. Next, please. So that was the kind of a picture.
Go to the previous slide.
Yeah, please.
I am wondering that, seeing that in this river basin, upper in this river basin, the stream flow is increasing. But as I have read many of the papers, so they said that the rainfall is also becoming less in this area, and the glaciers are retreating, and the snow cover is also reducing.
Right. No,
so
that
ultimately the stream flow should be low, I think.
right. So a couple of things. I think if you look at the Indian Punjab side, that part is decreasing. Right. All of this this is the main Byas and Satluj. This part is decreasing for one, because the Indian side's groundwater depletion is much lower. I'm not super aware about the Indus side, but I think the glacial melting is a key thing, and it's good that we're talking about the systems here. And what we are observing, I think other panelists can add, when the glacials are reducing, the glacial melt increases, over the next 100 years, we will see stream flow increase and then decrease. So that might be playing in here. And of course, if you want to look at this paper, it has the confidence levels of all the different basins, and you can kind of see what is more confidence and more accurate.
Actually, the time period of that particular analysis period is missing. So
Yeah, that would have been nice. Yeah, but you can just search for Vimal Mishra paper Nature on stream flow. Yeah, it's really available. Yeah. Next, please. So that was the problem part, and now I just wanted to kind of point out on the solutions part, and in the context of water systems again, as the session is planned. And I recently read this book called Thinking in Systems, and while going through it, I kind of thought of ideas that were relevant to water. And the main thing that comes out to mind is, everybody knows the blind and the elephant story allegory, where everybody kind of has their own experience, but it is rarely the whole truth. And if you talk to a farmer, they would know a limited part of the whole truth. If you talk to a scientist, they would know a limited part of the whole truth. But everybody here has to talk to each other, like it was said in yesterday's first plenary, where all the elements are very interdependent: the snowpack, the groundwater, and the river water, all of the other systems. They're closely interconnected, and they should be looked at in the whole. So just a few kind of takeaways from the systems theory, as they say, is that one should always think about it in terms of stocks and flows. When I see people talking about water systems and even the outcome indicators that CSRs have, they are often confused between stocks and flows. Like for groundwater, for example, the stock would be the total groundwater storage, and the flow would be the difference in the over extraction or difference in the recharge and extraction. That would be the flow. And it's notable that the stocks change very slowly, but the flows can change much quickly. And while talking about solutions, I think we should always keep in mind of the feedback loops, which can either be balancing or can reinforce. Like in climate change, for example, the permafrost is a reinforcing climate change variable, or balancing is the increased photosynthesis is the balancing variable of climate change. Similarly, for water, I think when you consider groundwater, for example, if people have rules that water is declining, there should be a new thing kicking in, that could be a balancing loop. But if we don't have rules, then it could be a race to the end, and that kind of reinforces the unsustainability. Then there is a concept of adaptive systems in systems thinking, where essentially the systems which are adaptive are resilient, as simple as that. And in the water context, I think having local governance in water systems is what it can make it resilient. And by that I mean, whenever there is a change, people should be talking about it at every level and changing the rules. So that kind of leads to adaptiveness. And then interrelations, I would invite everybody to think more about the interrelations of the different water system elements, which are often neglected but very important. And then finally, the point of bounded rationality, because when we're talking about water systems and solutions, every different kind of player, like I said, a farmer or a politician or a scientist, everybody will have their own perspective of looking at it. They will not understand it fully. Their rationality will be bounded to a certain degree of understanding. And the way to expand that rationality to longer term view is making rules. So as I say here, solutions to bounded rationality is bringing in rules which are made with a view of the longer term. So if the rules can be made looking at the longer term and can penalize or incentivize the short-term goals, that can expand the bounded rationality of every player. For example, a farmer can have certain positives or negatives based on their behavior. That can expand their bounded rationality, is what I'm saying. So I just wanted to, with this, kind of set the stage, and I'll invite the next speaker. So I invite all the speakers to kind of continue this discussion in terms of what their organizations have done, their research has done, but kind of move towards the overall architecture that we're building in the Shillong Declaration. And there are some of the kind of pertinent points out there are planning together, using state-of-the-art technology, aligning all the different systems together. So I invite everybody to kind of think on those lines and present. So the first speaker is Dr. P.S. Rao from ACIWRM. So he has 30 years of experience in water sector. He has worked extensively with Netherlands aid program, managing land and water program there, with UN FAO, working across several countries, and now working in IWRM and river basin management in Karnataka with the government of Karnataka's Advanced Center for Water Resource Management. Yeah. Please, sir.
Yeah, good morning. I'll share some of the experiences we have with river basin planning and IWRM in Karnataka. We have been working on this for the last 8 to 10 years with ADB support. Next. Okay, this is Karnataka state, having 7 river basins, of which 2 are the major ones, the Kaveri and Krishna, and then there are the sub-basins in Karnataka. So while we were working on various data collection and all these things after we analyzed, we found out the new emerging challenges that are coming out in Karnataka, and more or less these are same for most of the states. So every state wants to have their GDP grown very well, but it's all water intensive, but somehow that is missing in most of the plans, grand plans that happens. So every state is doing this global investors meet and all, but water is not the central focus there. And there are issues even with groundwater. There is so much of groundwater extraction happening rightly for supporting the agriculture and drinking water. but whereas the recharge is reducing, so that's another major challenge that's coming up now. And for the food production also, water is the key, and for energy also, water is the key. So when we talk about food security or economic security, I think water security comes first. We have river flows reducing in many places. The stream flow data for the last 30-40 years have shown very clearly, and some of the rivers used to flow for many months. Nowadays, they are flowing for only a few days kind of a thing. Next. So this is the rainfall pattern for the last 30 years in Karnataka. So if you see this, then the most of the orange part is like drought-prone area according to the Government of India definition. So about 70% of the state's geographical area is drought-prone, and the Western Ghats, the hilly part, is the what we yields heavy rainfall, and that's what we need to use in the rest of the state. These are some of the water demand that we estimated in 2021. It was something like 1700 PMC, and by 2030 it is likely to increase to 1900, and then by 2050 it is likely to increase to 2250. So definitely there is more demand happening in various sectors, and how we have to address this is what we need to look at, and that's why we went into river basin planning. So why river basin planning? A couple of drivers which helped us decide in Karnataka is urban towns are increasing, the smaller towns getting urbanized, a lot of migration happening from rural. So when there were 270 towns earlier, now it is around 350 urban towns. So then the water supply is more, as you all know, the requirements in urban is also more like 135 liters per person, whereas in rural it is only 70 liters. Then we have the population growth also increasing very high in urban things. The density is also increasing, which means that you need to supply more water to certain smaller areas, urban areas. Like if you take the example of Bangalore city, it has grown multi-fold. We are bringing water all the way 100 kilometers away from kind of thing. And agriculture share in the GDP is reducing, so then there is every need to increase the efficiency in agriculture. So one of the facts which a lot of the planning cycles are missing is that every sector takes water from the same river. It's the same source. So when each department is planning in silos, and each sector is planning in their own silos, they are missing this link with each other. So that's where the river basin planning actually is really helping to get good with these things. So we have started with Tungabhadra basin in Krishna basin. So we have done several studies. First we started collecting data from various departments and putting it together, and then preparing something called a profile, which is like a baseline document of what is the situation of the basin as of now. So, and we have also identified some separate studies because there is a lot of data gaps in the departments which are collecting. So we went into water quality studies separately, river health studies, then water accounting and water productivity assessment using remote sensing, because a lot of irrigation systems, water use efficiency is very low. So water productivity is one important thing that's coming up. Then we went into river basin modeling for the first time in the state. Department was never into this river basin modeling kind of a thing. Then we have partnered with Indian Institute of Science and IIT Gandhinagar for climate change studies for the next 100 years kind of a thing. And we also looked into the governance structure, so what is being managed by which department kind of a thing. So this is the larger Krishna basin, Karnataka state. Next. So this is the Tungabhadra basin. It's almost like 1/3 of the area of the state. So if you can fix something here, I think large solutions are there. So when in the profile, what we try to focus is actually, as I said, is the baseline of the basin. So we estimated what are the present demands and what are the future demands kind of a thing. And we have several chapters in it getting into severe each sectoral areas. Then we also use the GIS, converting all the data into maps and creating a spatial library kind of a thing. Next. And we went into special studies like mascot for the irrigation analysis, then water accounting and water productivity. Next. So this is the thing in Tungabhadra sub-basin. So we have currently demand of about 482 TMC Tungabhadra sub-basin. Ultimately it is going to increase to 584 TMC. Many of these projects are already planned, so the demand is definitely going to increase. So these are the projects which are already there in the line. Right now, the projects which are in the pipeline use only 33 TMC as of 2015. But when they are completed and then they are fully functional, we need 195 TMC for these existing projects. They are already happening. Next. So while doing the river basin plan, this is what we have followed. We have drawn from the international experiences from Indonesia and Australia, Murray-Darling Basin and Spain. And then we come up with our own list of strategies kind of a thing which is suitable for Karnataka. So we followed this. So in the Tungabhadra basin, when we analyzed, next. See this, the 30% area, geographical area is Tungabhadra sub-basin, and one of the important thing which we never knew earlier was the milk production. 20% of the milk production is coming out of this basin in the state, whereas animal husbandry never had big focus for investing for water security or anything. And if you look at the food production also, the rice especially, and the sugarcane, 37% of it is coming out of this basin. So that's why this basin becomes very key. Fortunately, 98% of this basin is within our state, so we can handle it ourselves. So these are all the separate studies we have taken up to complete the profile and get into the planning phase. Next. So this is a example of water accounting using remote sensing. We partnered with IHE in Netherlands, and then we carried on. Next. So we know what is coming in, what is going out, what is being used by the crops and kind of things, and what are the storage changes in groundwater and all that. Yeah, this is the water productivity assessment we have done using remote sensing again with IHE partnership. So the large irrigation systems, like this is the Tungabhadra irrigation system in the basin, we identified 3 areas with different productivity levels. So in the same canal system, we have somewhere 8 tons per hectare and we have somewhere 4 tons per hectare. So this is what we have identified and shared with the agriculture department and horticulture department, and we are trying now to change their working policy, not to measure per hectare but also to measure per volume of water kind of a thing. Next. Then we thought when we were doing the water quality assessment, a lot of new parameters came up when we were doing the field work, especially the fisheries department has come up very vocally, saying that there is a large amount of economic activity with thousands of fishermen families. So we went beyond the water quality thing, then we come up with something called river health index. So we were trying to assess different river stretches using this. There's an IUCN index based on that. As I mentioned, river basin modeling is something first we tried. So one is the basin modeling, the hydrological modeling, but also we tried to look at large irrigation systems, water management, how the water management happens at the irrigation system level. Because when you have upstream reservoirs and downstream reservoirs, they are interlinked when they operate, but we don't have an integrated reservoir operation right now. So we tried to assess how it will be possible. These are the consultations we were having with different departments. Next. On the water quality. Next. So after doing all this analysis, we have identified 4 key areas for this basin plan. One is about the surface water, the supply of the water in the rivers. You need to secure, otherwise the flows into the reservoirs, otherwise a lot of systems would go away. Then the groundwater thing has come up very prominently, and related to that is the catchment treatment or the watershed management thing. Then we also come up with the water quality. These are all agreed with several departments discussing the data analysis. Then we also looked at the governance, how this river basin should be governed kind of a thing, whether it should be a river basin organization or whether it should be a committee or what kind of a thing. So for each of this, we tried to list out several activities. And in the first thing, what everybody agreed upon is the assets in the basin. Not only the reservoirs or the canal systems, but there are several assets which are important to ensure the water supply in the basin. And those are all what needs to be brought into one database kind of thing. So we prepared something called asset management guidelines for the first time, and then we also are preparing an asset management database, so that everything will be populated in it by various departments related to the water, and then you can have a management plan for it or operational and maintenance plan kind of a thing. Next. So when we are looking at the surface water supplies in the basin, when we analyze various watersheds, we realize these 2 watersheds which are in the mountains in the Western Ghats are the key which yield the whole volume of water which is used in else of the basin. So the primary aim should be that we need to protect these watersheds, which are mostly in the forest and some in the non-forest areas. Next. So there are several activities listed under that with several departments. Next. We identified which department has to do what kind of a thing. So next one is about the catchment treatment in the groundwater. So there are several overexploited blocks in the basin. So we try to focus on that, the activities listed for this key area. Next. And also the watershed treatment. So one of the watershed which prominently arises is the one which is feeding into the Tungabhadra basin, Tungabhadra dam here, and 30% of the reservoir is silted already. But when we analyze this and discuss with all the departments, watershed department never had any plans in this watershed. For some reason or the other, it did never fit into their program. So this is something new which flagged out when we did this analysis. Next. So these kind of things we had identified several things for several departments. Next. And the third one, key area is the water quality. So water quality, one of the thing is that all the water quality monitoring stations in Karnataka state are now manual. They just pick up the samples, take to the lab and analyze. So we introduced something called real-time water quality monitoring with sensors and all. We are doing as a sample with 4 stations. Once that experience comes well, then probably entire state can be done. So there are several areas identified even for sewage water treatment. So many sewage water plants are needed for the urban towns. So these are also identified in this city. Yeah. So these are the areas under the next. So when coming to the governance, we have we have reviewed several laws which are existing in the state, applicable to each of the department related to water, and then identified certain gaps kind of a thing. And we are also come up with some 3 options as to how the river basin has to be governed, when any of the large department has to lead it, or they said there should be a separate organization kind of a thing. So these are all the several documents we have published. Next. Capacity building we were doing because a lot of things are new topics which we are handling. We covered more than 1,000 staff. And while collecting all this data, we also prepared something called Water Resource Information System. We just put everything data into one place. So these are all the various data for various periods available. Millions of records are now there in the database, and now it's being accessed by the departments. Next. Yeah. So several departments like water conservation, then the Kaveri Water Authority, all these people have been using the data from that database. So this is how the dashboard looks at the state level. You can also look at the basin level like this. Next. At the reservoir level also, historical data. Next. And we prepared something called Karnataka Water Atlas for the first time using all this data. Next. After doing all these various things at several committees, there has been a demand for clarity on whether progress is happening or not kind of thing. So at that time we came across with the Asian Water Development Outlook work that's carried out by ADB. So we used that index and calculated for the whole of Karnataka. It's a very elaborate exercise with several sub-themes and categorizing all the interventions into these 5 areas. So when you give weightage for out of 20, then out of 100, about 49.5 is this. There are sub-indicators also. So when you do further after next 3 years or 4 years, we can trace whether the progress has happened or not. So on the governance, there are 25 key legislations, 14 state legislations and 11 central legislations. So we documented all those things. Next. And then we also looked at possibility of a water law. For the first time in this country probably, no state has a water law, or even the country doesn't have a water law, we have water policies. So we looked at it from the lens of the IWRM, and if you want to move towards integrated water resource management and river basin management, whether the existing laws are sufficient, because each of the law identifies only certain area. So we have come up with 3 kind of things, like amend the existing laws to fulfill the gaps, or come up with a comprehensive water law, or come up with a new partial water law which will fulfill the things. The government will have to decide on this. There's a committee set up to further work on this. So we have a new water policy in the state, bringing in all of the new work what we are doing. And one of the glaring things which came out in the consultations when we were doing water policy is the priority for livestock, fisheries and aquaculture. It was not there earlier. So it was always like agriculture and allied. But fisheries department and animal husbandry department were very vocal, and they have presented several things, and then so this was agreed. So to implement this water policy, there is now 2 committees, one at the ministerial level and one at the chief secretary level. The meetings are happening, and they asked us to prepare an implementation roadmap for implementing this water policy. It's all good that you have a lot of wishes in the water policy. So one of the cabinet subcommittee ministers, they said, okay, you prepare an implementation plan and how much time it will take kind of a thing. So we have put up something like a 10-year implementation roadmap for this water policy. That's discussed at the committee level and is agreed. And now it comes back to the departments, and each department will have to prepare their own action plan in line with that. We identified each strategy and sub-strategy in the policy which is related to one particular department, which can lead, and other departments also joining with that department kind of a thing. So probably this will be the next good work in the next 10 years. Thank you.
Thank you for that insightful talk, Dr. Rao. That was a comprehensive understanding of river basin that I think we should all learn from. And so our next speaker is Ms. Sandra Win. She's the Deputy Director at the Directorate of Water Resources and Improvement of River Systems in the Government of Myanmar. She has a civil engineering background and 20 years of experience in the Directorate of Water Department. I invite her to go ahead, and I invite the audience also to keep holding their questions till the end, and we'll get that. Thank you, please.
Hello, good afternoon, ladies and gentlemen. I'm Sosan Dawi, Deputy Director of Directorate of Water Resources and Environmental River Systems under the Ministry of Transport and Communications. Today, I want to talking about National Water Resources and Utilization and Management of Myanmar. This is the natural condition in our country. Our country, Myanmar, is located in Bangladesh, India, China, Laos, Thailand have international borders. Mainland area is 677,000 square kilometer. Our country have a tropical monsoon climate. Have a 3 seasons. Hot season is mid-February to mid-May. Rainy season is mid-May to late October. Cold season is late October to mid-February. Our country have 4 main rivers. This is water resources in Myanmar. The 4 major country is our country are Ayeyarwady, Chindrin, Sitao, and Banner rivers. This river is a navigable name of major river. Our country has many departments related to water resources, so we organize this department by NWRC. NWRC is established since 2013, an apex body in water sector. My department, TWII, is a focal agency for NWRC. Our Director General is the Secretary of NWRC. This is a national water policy, integrated national water policy, water framework dictated, published by the NWRC. NWRC have many international relations for water resources management, as the Netherlands, the World Bank, and the Korea. NWRC, Ayeyarwady Integrated River Basin Management Project all band long. 4 major objectives. Ayeyarwady Integrated River Basin Management Project has 3 components. One is water resources, institution, and decision support system, and hydroinformatics center. Ayeyarwady River Basin Plan, new investment and capacity building. Component 2 is hydromet observation and information system modernization. Component 3 is Ayeyarwady River navigation enhancements from Mandalay to Nyau. This is the task of component 1. This is the task of component 2. This is the task of component 3. Next.
go back to twice. She wants those arrows. Yeah.
This is manually to Nyau, smooth navigation, to improve smooth navigation. We already install lighthouse and river conservation walk. This is the benefit of the integrated river basin management project for water management. Right there. National water law, standard rules and regulation are already there. Hydro Informatics Center is a Hydro Informatics Center and ARD Basin Master Plan. Unfortunately stopped because of my country political issue. MPDRC has organized annual Water Day celebration in Myanmar since 2014. Four main objectives. The ceremony was with article competition, symposium. I look like this International Water Conclave. This is the last year, 2023, World Water Day ceremony. Last year, World Water Day theme is accelerating change. This is a awarding prize from a competition, article competition winners. Water Day 2024 will held on next March. This year theme is leveraging water for peace. Our department, GWIR, is responsible for safe navigation, water conservation, and pollution control of our main major river. Our focus department of NWRC or GWIR also still needs to improve its capacity. And last one is Myanmar is on the right way for water management. Thanks. Thank you.
Thank you, Ms. Sandha, for telling us about the Irrawaddy River Basin Management Plan. It's always nice to know the similarities and differences between the approaches that different countries are taking. Our next speaker is Dr. Deepak Bisht from National Institute of Hydrology. He's a scientist there at the Center for Biosphere and Climate Change Studies within the NIH. He completed his PhD and Masters in the broad domain of hydrology and climate change from IIT Kharagpur. His diverse research interests encompass hydrological modeling, hydroclimatology, spring-shed management, flood modeling, and hydrological extremes. Dr. Bisht.
Thank you, Mr. Gewal. A very good afternoon to one and all. So, I will be talking about river and water systems, challenges and solutions. Next slide, please. So, there is a need for systematic, coordinated and scientific approach for river and water system management because it also serves the 7 SDGs, Sustainable Development Goal of UN. The first is no poverty. That says that the accessibility to resources and water is one of the prime resource. For that, everyone should have access. Second is zero hunger. If you have water available for irrigation or for productivity, the grain production can be ensured, so hunger can be combated. Gender equality, again, the ability to cope up with water-related disaster or water collection is different for males and females. So if we have a system in place wherein both the males and females, their abilities and their problems is considered. So that can also be taken care of in that. Then clean water and sanitation, which is, one can easily understand. Then sustainable cities and communities. In sustainable cities and communities, we need to have our cities flood-proof, we need to have our cities disaster-proof, and if we have a well-placed system in place, then we can ensure the sustainability. Climate action, again, the mitigation and adaptation has to be implemented on river basin scale, so that has to be addressed. And life on land, the ecosystem services require water, flora and fauna require water, to preserve the biodiversity we require water. So that can also be addressed if we have a well-placed system in, for river and water system management. Next slide, please. So for that, hydrology can play a crucial role, which is basically an interdisciplinary science and deals with the movement circulation of water. And this was the hydrological cycle diagram, which was released 20 years back by USGS. And next slide, please. And with the advancement of knowledge over the last 20 years, more comprehensive diagram was released by USGS in 2022. So here this was already explained by Mr. Deva, but I would like to draw your attention to one of the components, say permafrost. So permafrost was not much discussed earlier, but there are many other components like permafrost or say the industrial water uses, agricultural water uses, which was not included in the old water cycle. That has been given due attention there, because in research domain, when we want to study the water cycle or the water management in a holistic way, we need to consider all these components of the hydrological cycle. Next slide, please. But now we are facing climate change, and when we look at the broader perspective, we can see that different components are interconnected with each other. For example, there is an interaction between atmosphere and biosphere. There is an interaction between hydrosphere and atmosphere, cryosphere and atmosphere. So, what is happening? We have a lot of greenhouse gases in the atmosphere that has risen the temperature of atmosphere. For that, and due to that, we are facing a glacier melt. We are facing a heavy flood. Climate has doing all sort of creating all sort of problems for humanity. Next slide, please. And next slide. Next. Page down here. Page down. Yeah. And this is the one of the very interesting illustration by IPCC, which was released in 2021. So here we have different hexagons, and these hexagon basically denotes different areas of the world map. So we have world map on the top right corner. So here, if you look at the SAS, that is South Asia, where which comprises India, Pakistan, Bangladesh, Bhutan. So here the green color shows the increase in the heavy precipitation, the observed change, and the single dot, and we have double dot. So basically single dot and double dot are nothing but the confidence level. What is the confidence level on the human contribution towards the climate change? Single dot means there is low agreement because we may have less data, right? So that also low agreement among the scientists who have come up with the results. So for that we need more research, we need more data to further gain more confidence on the result or the trajectories toward which we are moving. Next slide, please. This is another illustration. So here we have different climate impact drivers which are projected to change, and here if we, in the context of river and water system, the mean precipitation, river flood and heavy precipitation and pluvial floods are important, and all these parameters are likely to increase in the coming future and or have been increased. So here we have this violet bars which shows in how many areas they are increasing, and the orange bar which are on the downward side shows in how many areas they are decreasing. So in the previous slides we had hexagons, so there were 55 hexagons, means the world was analyzed in 55 different zones, and in majority of the areas we are facing that mean precipitation, pluvial flood and heavy precipitation and pluvial flood are supposed to increase in the coming future, which will pose a great challenge for us to manage our systems. Next slide, please. And at the same time, this is also another illustration how the heavy flood or extreme events are going to increase, which will have implication on the increased flood risk. So if we look at the current scenario, which is at 1 degree Celsius, though we have already surpassed that condition. So here the heavy flood, there are chances that the frequency which used to be earlier once in every 10 years is now 1.3 times, and at the same time the condition would be more better. And when we further increase towards 1.5 degrees Celsius warming, 2 degrees Celsius warming, or 4 degrees Celsius warming, so these likelihood of the extreme events are increasing. And in a recent report in Nature, it was reported that we are going to hit 1.5 degrees Celsius by 2030, in the decade of 30 and 40. Next slide, please. So it is not that we are going to face flood risk. In one of the studies which we carried out, so it is about the drought, and we can see that in coming future there is more risk that our drought severity would increase and our drought duration would also increase. So we have on both sides, on the top two figures, that shows how the average drought duration and severity is going to increase. So the red color shows the increase in the trend. Next slide, please. And at the same time, if you look at this into this figure, so here the bottom figure shows that shows the trend in the area that comes under above moderate drought. So above moderate drought are more severe than the moderate drought. So moderate drought are going to decrease and above moderate drought are going to increase. Next slide, please. Then in one of the study we carried out for Mahanadi River Basin. So here we can see that that Q5 and Q10 basically shows the high flow, and Q90 and Q95 shows the low flow. So in both the cases, the high flows are increasing and their frequency is also increasing. Though we have some increase in low flows, but their frequency are decreasing. So means the frequency of low flow decrease means we would have less water in the lean season. Next slide, please. So again, we have seen this slide. Next slide. If we further break it down to a river basin scale, so here we have different component: upstream, midstream, and downstream. And there are linkages between these three, because whatever you do on the upstream, there is a direct implication on the downstream, and at the same time, downstream, which draws all the benefits of the activities which are being carried out at the midstream. So again, there has to be some sort of incentive that goes to the upstream and midstream from the downstream. So there are different challenges for people who live in upstream. For that, we have blow-off, risk, landslide, avalanche, and flash flood. So these things generally do not take place in the downstream. Then in downstream we have sedimentation problem, flood problem, and groundwater depletion. Now groundwater depletion, because we have more residential areas there, more settlements there, so more groundwater pumping is there. So different zones have different problems, and likewise there are also linkages between the different regions. So we need to plan a strategy wherein the problems as well as the benefits that can be drawn can be linked, and a sustainable plan can be devised. Next slide, please. Next, yeah. So there is a framework that is called DPSI framework: drivers, pressure, states, impacts, and response. So what are the drivers here? So drivers could be urbanization, intensive agriculture, then your climate change variability, and these drivers exert pressures in terms of air water pollution. Then climate change causes erratic or intense rainfall that causes flood and drought. Then they have impact on the state of environment in terms of reduced water availability, reduced groundwater availability, and reduced agricultural productivity. Then these states have impact in terms of socio-economic impact on women, livelihood, and well-being. Then we have to respond to these changes by improved water management, early water scoring, forecasting, and there are several other methods. Next slide, please. So what are the key issues and approaches here? The issues are climate change. For that, climate modeling and downscaling can be carried out. Water availability, hydrological modeling can be carried out. Drought, again, modeling and analysis is the method. For flood, hydrodynamic modeling is the method. Ecosystem, modeling, remote sensing surveying. Then erosion and sedimentation, soil erosion and assessment modeling can be carried out. And for spring side or river regeneration, soil and water conservation activities can be carried out. And these all are the part of hydrology, which we study and which is being studied among all the top colleges or institutes and universities in India. Next slide, please. So this is the last slide. So what are the challenges here? What are the opportunities? What are the strategies? And what are the outcomes? So one of the major challenges, data constraint. So we do not have data or good quality data. or there is no data sharing. Second, climate change again is a major challenge, and tackling it, devising a plan which can be easily implemented is a challenge. Then insufficient institutional capacities in terms of untrained manpower and in terms of not very sophisticated infrastructure. One of the example can be seen in terms of like computational power or good quality computers that should be given to the engineers or researchers. Then what are the opportunities here? These days we have growing awareness among public, we have evidence-based credible research, we have good academic network, every year people are researching on these aspects, then capacity building program, government is carrying out on a large scale, then government support is also there. On administrative front, the key strategies could be facilitate coordination and collaboration among the states, ensure data information and knowledge sharing, coordinate with relevant government ministries and departments, develop and execute capacity building strategies. On science front, we need to apply scientific methodologies and approaches. For example, we can have more digital support system, ensure high quality scientific product, data generation and knowledge sharing, then mobilize resource for scientific projects. Then the outcome would be in terms of regional collaborative projects on science and capacity building, increase policy interaction between government, improve capacities of institutions, and enhance collaboration among R&D institutions and implementing agencies, and which will have the major impact on the resilient river and water system. So if we follow such kind of strategy, we can manage our river and water system, and we can also complete or fulfill the 7 goals that I listed in our very first slide of UN. So thank you all.
Thank you, Dr. Bisht, for a comprehensive understanding of how the different scientific approaches and modelings can help us understand the water systems better and kind of move towards developing approaches to move the outcomes on the ground. So our next speaker, before I go to Dr. Sharatan, I'll just go through. There was another speaker who could not unfortunately attend due to a last minute engagement, but he has sent a video. If we can just play that. This is Dr. Farhad Contractor. He's the founder of Sambhav Trust Ahmedabad, and he wasn't unfortunately able to attend, but let's go to this.
आदर्श शहर की संरचना शुरू करी, लेकिन इस जमीन पर ना पानी था ना पेड़ थे, और जमीन इतनी खारी थी कि हवा में नमक का स्वाद आता था। तो सबसे पहले हमने वो करा जिसकी यहाँ सबसे ज्यादा जरूरत थी, पानी की व्यवस्था। स्थानीय प्रणालियों से सीखते हुए मेड़बंदी करी, वाटर चैनल्स बनाए, कुएं बनाए, तालाब बनाए, कुछ हमारी जमीन पर, कुछ पास के गांवों की, और सभी वाटर स्ट्रक्चर्स को जोड़ते हुए पानी की एक ऐसी व्यवस्था खड़ी करी जो आज सालाना 40 करोड़ लीटर बारिश का पानी संचय करती है। यह हमारा पहला कदम था, और हमारा लक्ष्य है कि यहाँ पानी की कभी कमी ना पड़े। पानी से सब कुछ बदलने लगा, आसपास के मवेशी यहाँ आने लगे, उनके आने से जमीन सुधरने लगी, और कुछ ही सालों में हम यहाँ जैविक खेती चालू कर पाए, आहार वन लगा पाए, और अब हम यहाँ 60 प्रकार की देसी सब्जियां, फल और धान उगाते हैं। छोटी छोटी कोशिशों से पूरे क्षेत्र में बदलाव दिखने लगा। हमारा अगला कदम था कई वन लगाना। 2016 से अब तक हमने मियावाकी पद्धति से 2 लाख पेड़ लगाए, और पारंपरिक तरीकों से 70,000 पेड़ लगाए। पेड़ों और पानी की वजह से यहाँ कई तरह के पक्षी, जीव जंतु यहाँ आने लगे। एक जगह जहाँ कुछ साल पहले कुछ भी नहीं था, वहाँ आज 120 से अधिक प्रकार के पक्षी और हजारों तरह के वन्य जीव निवास करते हैं। इस बुनियाद पर अब एक नई सोच के साथ एक आदर्श शहर की संरचना हो रही है। शहर जो अपने भोजन, ऊर्जा, हवा और पानी के लिए स्वनिर्भर हो, शहर जो लोगों के समग्र विकास में सहायता करे, शहर जहां सीखने के लिए, व्यक्तिगत और व्यावसायिक विकास के लिए अपार अवसर हों, एक ऐसा शहर जो आने वाली पीढ़ियों के लिए बोझ नहीं, विरासत बने।
That was a documentary that was sent by Mr. Farhad. Just a little bit of context on that. This is Dhun is around 100 kilometers southwest of Jaipur. It's a semi-arid area, as you can imagine, and they have been doing these water conservation works. And just to comment on that, I think at the end of the day,
Contractor means he is a contractor?
no, his name is Farhad Contractor. Yeah. He leads Sambhav Trust. And just to add, I think at the end of it, in terms of strategies or actual work on the ground, I think most of us agree that the kind of work that ends up doing is, the watershed movement that has been going on in the country for the past few decades. I think the needle on the ground only moves through those small farm ponds, those check dams, or the contour trenches and all those things. I think that is what at the end of the day kind of moves water from our wet season to the dry season. I think most people would agree. And I actually had a conversation with Mr. Farhad yesterday, and we were talking on whether water, if we infiltrate water upstream, what happens to the people downstream? Are we taking away water from them? But then we were discussing, and I said that essentially I don't think we are taking away water from the downstream people. In a way we are, but in a way we are not, because when we take that water and put that in the ground, essentially that often comes out as base flow downstream somewhere. So it is a transfer of seasonality from the wet season to the dry season in a way, and not just a taking away of water from the downstream people. It was just something to think about. Our next speaker is Mr. Shajatan. He's the Director Technical for National Water Development Agency, Ministry of Jal Shakti, and he's a civil engineer from IIT Madras, and he's worked on ecological restoration and watershed management for more than 10 years before joining this particular department. He's deputed from the Kerala State Groundwater Department to the Ministry of Jal Shakti, and I believe you shared yesterday too, but given that Mr. Farhad was not available, it would be great if your presentation could continue or kind of recap, so that, because I think it's very pertinent to the overall rivers and water systems thinking in terms of the plans that the government has. So please.
Thank you, Vivek. Respected delegates on and off the days. I think I didn't prepare anything for today's program, but some of the doubts yesterday, so many people asked me after my presentation that once this interbasin transfer, only 30 links are there throughout India. It's not like that. Actually, in 1980, Government of India devised national perspective. So after that is regarding this agriculture sustainability and production issues, things like that issue only Government of India plan. Studies we have conducted. So that is maybe some basins are within the state. So we call it as intra-basin water transfer. Okay. So this intra-basin water transfer that comes within the state. So not many political issues can be resolved within the state. Means lot of issues need not be addressed if it is within the state. Okay. So we have my experience, what Mr. Vivek was initially telling, that so many departments must coordinate. But I just want to share my experience with watershed-based development, which we have already successfully made with the. I think we can move on the slides. Okay, next slide, please something. This is yesterday I have already shared all those things. Anyway, please. So this doesn't next please. So this variation, actually you told this mostly the affected parties are hilly areas. Hilly, they generate water, what we already discussed. So the benefits are drawn by middle and the lower plains. So the strength of hills, is the richness of our downstream areas. So what we have to strengthen our hills. So how could we can make all those things? So conserve water where it falls. So based on this mandate, in some area you may be knowing Silent Valley. You may be heard of Silent Valley area. The Tatapadi is something there in Kerala. You can see just so some of the I think go back to previous slides. These are some of the completed projects we already did. There are a lot of water balance. We have water balance study report. Mostly what happens is state doesn't agree that we have sufficient balance. We don't want to share with anybody, right? So they will not agree with these things. So there are a lot of challenges happening. So since 40 years, we could able to implement only one link. Understand? I think similarly is the case. So there should be, what I want to tell you, that there should be sufficient focus on socio-economic and political details, and all should be coordinated and come together. Then only this can be materialized. So I had a practical experience. Okay, please. This is the yesterday I told this 10 by 12 is already in place now. So just in Kerala, this area. Next please. This area is very near Nilgiri biosphere, that Attapadi. Attapadi is famous for all notorious things, and it was in the, even though Kerala is famous for God's own country, the small pocket in Kerala is in the verge of desert. Yesterday I was telling. Next please. So this was the situation. Previously it was we had evergreen forest there, but this was totally barren, just by human exploitation itself. So a lot of rich of natural resources were there that was transported immensely, and this became barren like this. So the people itself started moving away from there. A lot of primitive tribes were staying there. So they were also exploited. So heavy exploitation happened in that area. So in this context, I think government of Kerala and JICA, formerly OEC, Overseas Economic Cooperation Fund, CWRD, Indian Center for Water Source and Development and Management, they prepared a plan, master plan for this area, exclusively for treating this area. So they devised, and after that we started implementing. During this organization formed in 1996, but since 3-4 years we could not start implementation. This whole project plan is ready, but we are unable to start. That's why, so PRI, participatory rural appraisal type of thing. So all this political, all these engineering aspects, I was heading there in civil engineering part of that one, but we have our socio-economic scientists were there, and we have our extension officers, we have our agriculture officers, forest officers, and the forestry officials. So all departments are coordinating. So some senior IAS officer in the rank of additional chief secretary or chief secretary is the chair of this organization. Then only this can happen. So we have to coordinate with disciplinary departments. So all the departments must cooperate, and only this can be effectively made. Suppose if you go into the forest area, land doesn't know whether it's forest. We have to do interventions in forest area. So for overcoming these things, we formed JFMCs, Joint Forest Management Committees. So people, highly participatory approach, but unfortunately, this replica, actually this should be a very good thing is that this is all were monitored, implemented, all they are implemented directly. So the results within 1 or 2 years we have seen the results. So, next please. There are two major rivers yesterday I told, Shillong and Bhavani, east flowing. Kerala, all are west flowing rivers, 3 only east flowing rivers is there, 44 rivers are there in Kerala. So these two rivers is east flowing rivers. So yes, these are watershed. We based not at that time there was no spring shed development type of concept, but there are a lot of springs also there. But we were succeeded with watershed development. Watershed development we planned in each and every watershed. The treatment will be totally different. So the slope, the things. I think you may be knowing, most of you are engineers and scientists. So you may be knowing that what type of this thing. As Mr. Vivek was showing one elephant type of thing, people recognize only with that small pockets. Okay? So we have to have a broader vision. What happens in the next watershed? What happens in those whole area? So we have to have a holistic approach and a holistic understanding about the area. And not only one, unless otherwise people are addressed, this cannot sustain. That is what my experience. Not my experience. There is an experience to the society and the country as a whole. So this is the major watershed, and we subdivided into 146 micro watershed. These are all streams, micro streams. Also, every micro watershed there is a people institution. So once we come to the structures, the treatment which we propose will be present. Suppose our scientists and our engineers or technocrats will go to the field, make aware the public. These are the things we can, they support. But the seniors in that area, once you go to a tribal hamlet, Mupan, the head of the hamlet, and his team, they will tell, see, sir, something you construct here, that will be very good. You have a source here. So this area, this information you will get collect from the public. So this type of information is collected together, and the proposal is prepared by the public itself, not by the technocrats. So these proposals we will vet scientifically, we will synthesize it scientifically, and we will make implement it. That's one of the beauty of that. Then again, there are a lot of their tribal household issues were also there. So whenever the government proposes, they don't have houses, they live in so bad condition, so they will construct some typical models to them. But they don't accept that one. What they do is they put cattle in that one and they slept outside. So we studied that aspect also. So what happens is they have their own requirements. It should be organically constructed. I don't know whether in most of the hill areas it's like that only. Maybe they will have some traditional knowledge that has to be brought into the scientific platform. So what we decided, you maybe heard of Dr. Larry Becker. So he planned our office building there. So one of the team went to one hamlet, studied, had interaction with the tribe, and their requirement, based on their requirement, they devised their own service. Okay, so that plan, then it worked excellently, and the people are living in that area in like a resort, like a feeling that they maintain that it very well. For example, one of the thing is that they make puberty houses separately. Okay, so women are not allowed during that period to their house, so they have to make something separate. Unless otherwise we make something like that, they will not accept it. So whatever they want, we have done it. So what happens is that this frequent investment of government money is saved. So and again, these are some of the areas which some of other my previous speaker was telling that lot of green scale, that video you have seen. Likewise, this was totally barren. Like this, it became fully green. So watershed development committees, so many committees are there. What they do is that they simply do some pitch without any scientific base. So here we have geologists there. We will identify where to do, what to do, and what is the capacity of the aquifer, how much it can hold, and how much it can be released. So that base, so people will tell so many things, but out of which we have to synthesize and bring, and as it is their decision only, not our decision. Our technocrats, we from IIT or we from NIH or any other streaming institute will tell you do like this only. This is the best solution for you. This is not the best one. We don't want these things. So likewise approach will be there. Politically, we have to take the public into consideration. This is just all the tasks were done by the public, by the People's Participatory Committee. It's one of the excellent model for corruption-free administration. So I don't know a freshwater pool can exist in a sea. That's a different matter, but it happened. It's really happened in this area. So these are all some of the things I would like to share. There are also a lot of I thought of showing you so many interventions, like scientific interventions, which we could make through the public. Public, this without any knowledge, they will study what to do. Next, please. Then, okay, sorry. I don't want to. Yeah. There are a lot of agriculture. They have to, some necessity we have to feel. Unless otherwise there is a necessity, we cannot impose something into the field, right? So necessity, what is their requirement, that need to be studied. So for their food sustainability, so this thing, we started agriculture. So we learned them, teach them. So this can be done. Some examples we have shown. So that become, their main program was just brewing alcohol, drinking this thing. So totally this thing. This is one of the success story. 3 major substream of Bhavani. This is one of the substream of Bhavani. It started flowing. So regeneration. We didn't aim at regeneration of rivers, but what happens ultimately? This river got flowing perennially. So this treatment from the hills. So the strength of the hills is the wealth of the sub area. So these are 2-3 streams we just told. This is their office designed by Dr. Ravi. We got Jacob Presidential Award in 2010. So this is our office buildings. It's a hill area like this Meghalaya, this in Kerala in some pockets. Kerala having both hills, midlands and plains. So next slide please. So what I want to tell is, I didn't told yesterday. So I majorly concentrate the consensus between the states as public participation should be ensured, and there should be constant follow-up. Like our this conclave, we made a success only I think because of Shakil Sab and team. Daily they are calling, and whether your this thing is that type of follow-up is there, means it can happen. It can happen for each and everything. So we have to ensure public participation and this thing. So thank you. Thanks a lot for
Can I ask all the participants to kind of come to the forefront a little bit for some questions that we might have? And can we switch off the projector for a little while everybody's sitting here, please, if that's possible? So thanks, Mr. Saladan, for again reminding us that people's participation and ecological restoration is the way to go for systems to strengthen. So that's great. Now, I invite any questions from the audience. Anything? Yes.
Hi. Yeah, hi. Thanks very much for the very nice presentations. A lot of information in there to unpack, but very informative. I've got a question. I'm Lance from ADB. I've got a question about the Ganges. Ganges is the rice bowl of India. It also has a large portion of your population. As one of the, I think your presentation is showing that groundwater is declining. We will know why. And I think, so from your presentation, you were showing the climate change impacts and snow melt and so forth, or maybe it was both of yours. What's going to happen in 100 years' time to the Ganges Basin? And what is the government thinking about in terms of that? Because if they run out of groundwater, that's food security, and then a lot of livelihoods, whole cities and civilizations will have to move. It seems to to be addressed now if you could fix it for 100 years' time. Thank you.
Dr. Rishi, you want to? Or should I go first? You can address first, yeah.
Yeah. So, sir, as you said that climate change is taking. Yeah. So climate change is really an issue, and Ganges will not be unaffected from that. And the climate variability across the different river different sub-basins of river Ganga is quite varied in nature. So the groundwater depletion is taking place because of heavy groundwater pumping, but the government do have a plan, and Ministry of Jal Shakti carrying out this Jal Shakti Abhiyan or Catch the Rain on a national scale. So in that, and also in MG Narega scheme, we are having multiple interventions for watershed management, and all these interventions are ultimately adding up to the groundwater recharge or aquifer replenishment. So in coming future, I mean, definitely we do have challenges, but at the same time that mitigation and adaptation activities to safeguard the water resources, to replenish the aquifer systems are going on. So I mean, again, I mean, the time will tell how successful we are, but the government is really working in that direction.
If I can just add to that, I think there was a recent paper which I forget the name, I was just researching, I can tell it to you later also, which essentially find out that there is extraordinary resilience in the total stream flow in the Ganga. I'm not talking of it in any mythological way, but primarily because of things like very high base flow from the Himalayas. The whole of the mountain front provides a lot of recharge, and this is especially true for the middle and the middle Ganga. Let's just say middle and the southern both maybe. But the upper Ganga is facing issues. Like if you remember the presentation that I had, the upper areas, like let's say western Uttar Pradesh, essentially the flows are decreasing there, and this is deeply corroborated by the Central Groundwater Board reports, the district reports that they have, that the groundwater levels are continuously decreasing. So that continuous decrease is leading to lesser base flow, as we found in the western UP or upper Ganga, but in the middle and the lower, it's not as much of a problem. And again, that should also be looked at in context of a lot of resilience that people have found. But of course, the resilience is going to decrease because as we said, as the snowpack melts, it's going to support that additional groundwater release for a while. For if I'm not wrong, something like 50 years is going to keep adding the water, and then as the glaciers are too far back, that will be the problem when the problems will start. I think others can add to it. But and one more point you said, how would groundwater be a problem? Groundwater in the Punjab, so essentially the whole of the Indo-Gangetic aquifer is extremely thick. It's like more than 1 kilometer thick, as opposed to the groundwater problems in the southern India. The total storage is a lot. The problem with the Indus basin is that most of it is saline, the bottom part. So there's a thin veneer of fresh water in the Punjab area. Punjab and Rajasthan is already facing that. The Uttar Pradesh and Bihar areas don't have, they have a much thicker freshwater zone. And so, as we said, I mean, the storage is a lot there. So that the groundwater but essentially we don't want to be unsustainable, right? So it's going to be a long road, I would say. And the solution, of course, in these areas lie in the food security nexus, right? Food and energy nexus. The solution there are in the peninsular areas, I would say the solution lies in watershed management and all those works. But in the Gangetic basin, the solution lies in food, in addressing the energy pricing and the food pricing and all those areas. It's much more complex.
Can I take some questions, sir?
Yes, please.
My question would relate to all of you in the dais, right? Mostly Professor Rao, I think, Dr. Rao, no, from Karnataka. I have seen your presentation, it is excellent. You have done very fine work for your state. Mostly, my question relates to the sustenance of irrigation potential in the state. As my experience shows, most of the states they developed quite a lot of potential, but it's very difficult to sustain. For example, Chhattisgarh they created around 18 lakh hectares, and now they are at 12 lakh. Assam created around 11 lakh, and they are at around 5.5 lakh. So, lots have been said about like participatory irrigation management. For Meghalaya, they are doing a fantastic work for groundwater water conservation. So, but this model somehow is not working, in reality. The scientist from NIC is also there. So, the other question probably relates to Brahmaputra Basin, the Brahmaputra Basin, a lot of modeling, a lot of works have been done by IIT, NIH also. Somehow, we are not able to contain the flood problems. A lot of land degradation is there. So somehow, from academic institutions, some fine solutions should come because, all the time states, they spend a lot of their budget in flood situation, but we are not able to find a solution. So what we are doing, from government media or from the scientists across our institution, they should suggest some fantastic solutions so that we can go by that. Otherwise, there is no point of coming to this kind of deliberations. My point is we should be able to find some solution and help the states. That's all. Please.
Just before you answer, sir, I just had a question. What were the decrease in numbers you were saying, sir? In the command area, you mean?
I think Dr. Rao could get my question.
No, basically, what you're mentioning is that irrigation potential when you construct and create, but you are not utilizing.
No, the gap, I mean the gap, sir.
Yeah, that's what.
How to sustain that?
Yeah. Actually, I couldn't put some slides in another initiative which our state has done. Certainly we are very much aware it's a issue on top priority discussing in the government. One of the activity what I mentioned, the mascot, is a very good tool to assess the whole diagnostics for the irrigation system, including command area, reservoir and everything. So we have done that for large irrigation systems in Karnataka. And one of the recommendations which commonly came across all the irrigation systems is the water control. You don't have good water control on the systems now. So that's the major thing. Although we do a lot of investments in canal lining and all that, the control of water management is really very weak. So that has come up quite well in all these studies. So we focused on one of the large projects called the Narayanpur Left Bank Canal Project. It's about 4.5 lakh hectares, quite a big size. So we have installed a lot of automatic gates on it, about 4,500 plus gates on every outlet, and constructed several cross regulators on the main canal and branch canals and on the large distributaries. So the cross regulator function is what actually is to manage water efficiently, to have water pool in different lengths, because your canal is 200 kilometers. So you should have pools of water. If the person at the end of 150 kilometer want water, now we release from the dam. And by the time it goes there, you lose more than 50 to 60%. Somebody picks up, or it evaporates, or it leaks, whatever it is. So this canal control, water control, I think is the major challenge in this country. Somehow, we had these cross regulators in the designs in our canal systems long ago, but now it's lost. Nowhere in the state I have seen, anywhere in any of the state that we do that. So every irrigation system releases water from the dam to whatever length you need to serve. It's common across all the states. So we improved this. In the last 2 years, we have set up all these things. And now we could service 1,30,000 hectares in the last year, which was not getting water since last 20 years. So just because of this cross-regulator, water control and all that. So we could save a lot of water that is being used and drained into the river at the head reaches, push it to the tail reaches because of this cross-regulators and water control function. So that's one of the reasons also why every irrigation system in this country have very less water use efficiency. I think average is 30%. No canal irrigation system in this country is more than 30 or 35%. So that's what we are addressing there. And with this model we could do, I think the last season efficiency calculations is something like 74% or something. So it's almost like doubled kind of a thing. You still have to do a lot of work with remote sensing studies and all, where it's a large area. But definitely 1,30,000 hectares have been serviced new in the last year and before here, where after laying the canals for 20 years, they never got water. So this is bridging the gap between irrigation potential created and irrigation potential utilized. But we have done it only in one large system, we are now going to do several. So maybe that's a solution.
So by that, do you mean that you can increase the water use efficiency due to the canal?
Yeah, definitely. It's not what automation itself is not the solution. If you can have even with manual or cross regulators and good measurement system, I think it can be done.
I think we're almost out of time. You have a question?
No, 5 minutes.
Okay, yeah.
One thing I want to just add, see, you was telling about this flood and drought coexist in our country. So we have a lot of data here, but we have the data of water surplus basins, and interlinking of rivers is one of the best solutions which we can advocate. So it has to be materialized. So we can just preach, that is, you have all of that data, this has to be done, this has to be done. Nothing is done so far. So we have to make initiative to implement this interlinking of rivers.
That is the only solution.
Yeah, that's the only solution.
Moreover, the other thing is like because Assam,
Yeah.
being a plain, surrounded by all the hills, like because for example, Meghalaya it is very easy to manage the water problems out here. All the hill states also they will be managing separately. For managing the flood problems, water problems of Assam, I think we need to work together with all the states. For that matter, I think NUMA, there was a proposal in Government of India for NUMA that has somehow not materialized. Unless we go hand in hand with all the states, probably the solution will not be there. So one of the takeaways maybe for that also, like how we can approach towards that.
We have another database from NHP, right?
Yes.
We have all database of all this automation of.
Now, there was some study by RTI International and Besar Labs that was done under one high-level committee. You might be aware of that. So that has not still pending, I think, in the ministry. Once that comes in, probably the water problems of the NER will get resolved. A lot of work has been done, sir, already. So we have
to identify the thing.
Our representative from ADV is also there. I think they are also very much aware of this thing. We need to go by that. Already works have been done in that direction.
I think we're close to the time. It's 1:30 already. So thank you everybody for joining the sessions. I hope we can continue the discussions bilaterally, separately if you have any other questions. So thank you.
Thank you.